Next in the watering hole we have MCQN founder Adrian McEwan. He has history of connecting, apparently you would think, inappropriate things to the internet, cash registers, things like that. And he's part of the team who first thought to put a web browser on a mobile phone. So I think probably 99.9% of the audience can be thankful for that. Spent the last 5 years working on the Internet of Things. He's the Chief Technology Officer of startup Goodnight Lab, which some of you may have seen around. And today he's going to be talking about the risks and challenges inherent in the implementation of the Internet of Things. So a very warm welcome, please, to Adrian McEwan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for asking me to speak. And I don't know, you see, when I signed up for this talk, it was like, I'm sure it was OshCamp, the event that I was talking at. And so I spoke last year at OshCamp about the Internet of Things, because that's all I do these days. And so this is, I don't know, I was kind of pitching it to be a bit more kind of techy, hardware-y sort of thing, and then you do this bait and switch of kind of taking like an awesome event and swapping it out for like an even more awesome event. Yeah, hopefully everyone will it'll still make sense, people will be able to keep up with it, and I guess we'll kind of find out as I go through the slides. So yeah, this was a bit where I was supposed to say all the things that Dav's already said. So yeah, I run an Internet of Things studio called McEwan Limited. I'm CTO of Goodnight Lab. Anyone who came to my talk last year will notice a subtle change in tense at this point, where the obligatory book plug is that I've written a book about the Internet of Things. And actually, yeah, don't write a book. It takes me forever. It's really hard. And actually, I've still got kind of proofs to read through on the train on the way back tomorrow. But it should, apparently, according to Amazon at least, which is the best knowledge I have of when it's going to be published, it'll be out on the 1st of November. So if you want to find out more about all this kind of stuff, then go and buy it. So, what is the Internet of Things? This is me kind of going, haha, there's like a lot of people might not know what the Internet of Things is now. Let's stick one slide in to talk about that. Who's heard of the Internet of Things? Wow, this must be like mass adoption now or something. Like, you know, phone up Gartner and kind of go, look, it's over that, everyone knows about it. For anybody who didn't put that hand up there, it's basically kind of the next wave of the internet. First we put all the kind of computers on the internet, then we put all the mobile phones on the internet, which I had a little part in playing back in the late 90s. And now we're putting like everything else on the internet. It's kind of like computing power is getting just cheap and kind of easy enough, for some value easy, to start embedding it into all sorts of things. So that could be, these are all projects that I've had some hand in, just because, you know, it's my talk. It could be a load of sensors inside a chicken food silo that's measuring how much food's left and relaying that so they know when to send a truck with like 5 tons of chicken feed out to a farm. It could be a family of internet-connected lamps that let you stay in touch with loved ones, kind of wherever they are in the world. Whenever you turn your big lamp on, the little lamps go on, and you kind of give them to loved ones. It could be a bubble machine that blows bubbles every time you get mentioned on Twitter, as is already featured in discussions this morning. It could be an Arduino hooked up to a load of sensors and stuff. It could be a radio that changes how the radio play works based on when you're listening to it, where you're listening to it, how close you are to the radio, sensors in it, things like that. So there's all sorts of kind of, you know, cool things that we can do with the Internet of Things. So like, you know, we all just need to sit back and kind of wait for this wonderful new kind of future to arrive. Yeah? Well, I'm going to tell you some like, stories first, and I kind of figured we'd go with kind of Ebenezer Scrooge-like sort of thing, and I'm going to tell you stories from ghosts of network past, networks present, and then networks future. So, networks past. Now, most people here, and kind of me to some extent, are probably too young to remember back in the kind of like email days of business in the late 80s, early 90s. But kind of when email first arrived in companies, it was replacing the corporate memo rather than a way to talk to your suppliers and your customers. So your company would get an email system, and it'd be like, this one's Microsoft Mail, and it would talk to other Microsoft Mail things, and that would be it. So you could send messages to people in your company, but if your mate worked at a different company and they had like Lotus Notes, then tough luck. You're not going to be able to send an email to them, which just sounds a bit crazy now, but that's what it was like in the olden days. And then it took quite a while before we started to get kind of gateways, interoperability, and to the point now where you can get loads of spam from anybody, not just people you work with. And then, kind of aside from email, when discussion forums and kind of information services, so the sorts of stuff you'd use the web for now. Like in the early days, you got that through a provider who did that, so like Compuserve or AOL, and I didn't find one that had multiple seats, because there were a load of photos when I was searching on Flickr. There were loads of photos for like floppy disks of Compuserve, but I couldn't find one that had more than one of the providers on. So we ended with CDs, which is still, I suppose, now quite an outdated technology. And you dial up to Compuserve, say, and that would give you access to their system. And like they'd have information systems, there are discussion forums, but you'd only be able to discuss things with other people who were on Compuserve. If your mate was on AOL, you couldn't chat about the film with him. You'd only be able to talk with other people on Compuserve, if you were on Compuserve. And you used to get things like, AOL keyword at the bottom of film posters and things like that to tell you how to go and find things. And there were just these little kind of silos. And then we kind of got the web, and they started providing a little tiny bit of Compuserve or AOL. It was like, oh yeah, if you've heard of this internet thing and you want to go and explore in this crazy World Wide Web, go over here. But most of the time, you really want to be over here, like looking at information about films. And then over time, everyone realized that all the interesting stuff was on the web, and not really on the kind of Compuserve and AOL stuff. And they just slowly became kind of ISPs, where you're using just a dial-up to get on the internet. And that was kind of all they did. And then, after we'd got the kind of web and stuff, then when mobile phones started to get online, the lovely guys at phone.com who came up with a standard called WAP managed to persuade the whole world that mobile phones weren't powerful enough to talk to the proper internet. They were like really low powered, and actually you need to give this kind of dumbed down internet light, which we didn't do. I wasn't responsible for that. We had a proper web browser that would do like HTML 3.2, which was all the rage back in 1997, honest. And we went and had to add WAP to it. And it was this kind of, basically, it meant that if you were trying to provide a service that using WAP, you'd have to learn a whole new set of technologies. And if you were the user, you'd either have to kind of hope that the service you provided had been written by somebody, or you'd cope with kind of a really clunky stuff that's been kind of translated and mangled through a WAP proxy to get down to your phone. And basically, kind of the dead end that was WAP seemed to kind of basically set back the mobile web by about a decade. And eventually, mobile phones got a bit more powerful, so more people realized you could actually run proper web browsers on it. And then we ran proper web browsers on mobile phones, which meant they talked to web servers, and people running web servers knew how to make web server technology and web websites. And so when they spotted that there were enough mobile phones coming along, they'd be like, okay, we can just tweak a few things. And then we end up with like one web that kind of works whether you're accessing it from a desktop PC or a laptop or a phone or a tablet. And that's kind of a much better scenario that we're kind of in now. So, that's kind of a nice history lesson. Back in the day, it was really complicated and rubbish. We've got the web now, isn't it awesome? And even mobile phones are here as well. Yeah, everything's cool. It's all great. Well, you'd think that, but now we've got the Internet of Things. And we're getting a similar, there's a lot of confusion, and there are some similar kind of stories being told, and kind of challenges and stuff. There's good reasons for all of these stories about the fact that, you are looking at trying to make the technology as cheap as possible to get it into things, and so some of the wireless technologies are cheaper than others, and some of the power consumption issues. Paul gave a good talk, a bit that I caught of before I snuck off to check, reread my slides and remember what it was I was supposed to say, about MQTT and some of the kind of challenges of power consumption and bandwidth usage and things like that. So there are issues around this, but at the moment there's Ethernet is one of the kind of, that's the easiest option because you've got cable. You don't have to worry about how you're going to get it on the network because it's like you plug a cable in, oh look, it's on the network. And the configuration is all quite understood. And so that's nice and kind of cheap, easy to do. But there are problems because you have to run cables everywhere. And people don't want, I don't want to run cables everywhere. I did it once for my house, like for the downstairs of my house when I moved in 2000, and that was a complete pain. And then it was like, oh, I've got Wi-Fi, cool. So usually, everyone wants to move to wireless stuff. Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth one. Thank you for the photo, Imran. This was just me searching last night on Flickr, kind of Creative Commons Wi-Fi. This one looks good, and then as I'm copying the URL over, I'm just like, Imran's photo. That was South by Southwest. Wow, cool. So Wi-Fi. It's kind of ubiquitous. Everyone kind of uses it all the time, uses it for everything. But it's quite power hungry. And you have, there are real issues about how you make it easy for people to get onto the Wi-Fi. It's not too difficult if you have a phone or a laptop because you have a screen and a keyboard. But when you're talking about lots of little sensor devices and stuff that don't have either of those things, it's like how do you type in which network it should go and what the network password is. So there are issues around using Wi-Fi. And so some companies, this is a smart things hub, and there are a lot of people seem to be making hubs for things, for the Internet of Things. And this has got Zigbee and Z-Wave in it, which are two wireless technologies. There was another one, RFM 12B, that Paul mentioned in one of his, but there are different, kind of trying to solve different problems as Bluetooth as well, Bluetooth Low Energy, where basically they're aimed more at the kind of sensor networks, and so they're trying to make it easier to do the configuration and associating with the network. And so smart things are kind of going, well, the Z-Wave and Zigbee, we don't know which one's going to win. Let's just stick both of them in a box. And then we work it out, and regardless, and that's all fine. But the problem with that is that if you're trying to deploy it as a consumer, you need two boxes. So instead of just buying a thing that has Wi-Fi in it, you now need a thing that has Zigbee in it, and then you need another thing that you're going to plug into your Ethernet cable or something next to your router so that they can talk to each other, because we don't have, we have pretty much everybody has Wi-Fi now, but not everybody has Zigbee in their house.